We are in the midst of a very crazy and somewhat unbelievable weather pattern, as all sorts of weather is going to be happening across the country over the next week. You really want to pay attention to this because it'll bring very high and very varied impacts depending on where you live. In the north, we have a major blizzard, some of the biggest snow we've had this season in portions of Minnesota and Wisconsin, feet of snow blizzard conditions. In the south, a very significant severe weather outbreak is looking more possible. This could potentially bring very widespread wind damage to many people. Finally, out in the west, we have a very intense heat wave that will be sending up record smashing heat, literally breaking heat records by weeks before schedule, where triple digit temperatures are possible in portions of the desert southwest. Today is Friday, March 13th. The weather is very busy. We've got a lot to track out there, so let's dive into it. So here are all the alerts, kind of dividing the country into these different areas. Winter weather alerts are in the north in this pink and blue shade. We have a few blizzard warnings where the very heavy snow is expected. We have some wind and fire warnings out in the central plains over portions of the mountains, and then we also have some of the heat alerts popping up in the desert southwest, including portions of California where very hot temperatures, record shattering heat is expected. We're going to get into everything piece by piece, and I'll try to go quickly so the video doesn't drag too long, but there definitely is a lot happening. The two most impactful and most potentially dangerous events, I think, will be both the snow and the severe weather threat. We can see them side by side on the same day that we're getting feet of snow in portions of Wisconsin. Over here in portions of the central and eastern US, we're going to be getting some very intense storms possible. So these will be happening simultaneously at the same time, and it's just going to be a very wild weather day, Sunday into Monday. To get us started, here is the system causing all this craziness. We have a very anomalous late season trough diving into the central and eastern portions of the US, and look how strong it is. It's very easy to tell where the area of low pressure, all of the energy moving down south. This is a very vigorous system, and it'll be bringing not only a lot of that colder air, which is causing the blizzard and even severe weather concerns. Look out to the west. Behind the trough, we have this very strong ridge coming in. This is why we also have that record heat over portions of the southwest. So just a very dynamic, very wavy jet stream, and that's leading to all this chaos. Here's another look at our system and all the energy in place. This is several thousand feet up in the atmosphere, and as that trough goes through, look at some of these colors here. We can have 100 knot winds several thousand feet up into the atmosphere, and as those storms come, some of this wind energy will be translated down to the ground, which is why the wind concern is very high. So this is a very sharp trough and some very powerful winds translating down, and that's why we just have a lot of concern with the blizzard, but also the damaging severe thunderstorm wind gusts. Alright, we're going to start up in the north. We're going to track the winter first, then we'll shift to severe weather. Across portions of the northern plains, you're most at risk from Minnesota into Wisconsin. Anyone in the red, which does include Minneapolis, it does include Green Bay, it does include many people also in the UP of Michigan, Marquette, y'all are up there. All of you need to prepare for major impacts Sunday into Monday. This could be a potentially crippling winter storm where you could be snowed in for several days. So make sure we're ready for this, because without proper precaution, this could be a truly dangerous event. This is one of the worst winter storms in this region that we've had this year and in quite some time, in many years in fact. Even further out though in the Dakotas, portions of the Midwest, Nebraska, Iowa, and even Chicago, you'll want to watch out for at least minor to moderate impacts from the snow. So I'm going to have another video on Sunday where we dive even more locally and zoomed in on some of the impacts, so I'll stay a little bit broad with our radar. But here's a look at what potentially this system could look like. Notice some of that snow will start as soon as Saturday across portions of the northern plains, and it'll also be windy at this time. I'll talk about the wind more in a moment. The snow and the precipitation will gradually move east and really strengthen overnight Saturday into Sunday. This is 8 p.m. on Saturday. We have a mix of rain and snow across the northern plains. The Midwest is still staying dry, areas further to the east. Everything starts intensifying Sunday morning. By the time we wake up Sunday morning, we could be waking up to several feet of snow just from this overnight period, especially in this stripe from South Dakota into central Minnesota, including Minneapolis, and then extending into Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the UP of Michigan. That's where the heaviest snow will set up. Something we'll be watching closely is that mix between the rain and the snow. That's where some sleet, freezing rain could happen. Wherever this mix occurs, that could really eat into your snow totals. So if you're north of the mix, you stay all snow. We could be talking about 2 feet plus of snow. Just a few miles south, if you get caught in a few hours of sleet, freezing rain, that'll really chip down into some of your snowfall totals, where maybe you'll only talk about 1 feet instead of 2 to 3 feet. So some very minor details could lead to some very big differences of impact and location. Regardless, it's going to be a mess. Travel is going to be very dangerous, especially combined with all that wind. Now, those areas that do mix over in central Wisconsin briefly to a wintry mix, you'll go back to snow on the backside of the system. So as we go later on your day Sunday, this is now 4 p.m., snow starts re-entering the picture as the colder air on the backside enters. This is also when the snow could extend a little further south. Behind some of those thunderstorms, which I'll talk about in a minute, we could be dealing with a brief glance of snow all the way from St. Louis in Missouri up into Iowa and portions of the Midwest. This will eventually move over into Chicago. On the backside, Chicago, you could get some snow. And then notice all of Wisconsin, all of the UP of Michigan, we're still dealing with snow. This is now Monday morning. Some heavy snow snow before everything starts quickly weakening as it all moves to the east. So very wide range of impacts, but the most immediate concerns will definitely be late Saturday, Sunday, into the first half of Monday. We'll take a look at a lot of different models for snowfall totals. This is the national blend of models. It's a blend of all the different major global models, and something I've noticed is the national blend of models is very high. It's indicating some spots here in the UP of Michigan potentially getting 4 feet of snow. I think this is an outlier, somewhat shockingly, because this is supposed to be a more conservative forecast. I do think though 2 to 3 feet of snow is very easily on the table. The bottom line here is we're getting a lot of snow. Anyone in this yellow color, this extends back into portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Michigan, and the UP of Michigan. You're definitely going to get walloped with at least, at minimum, 1 foot of snow. Many areas in this region will get more, 2 to 3 feet as possible, and we can't rule out those isolated snow drifts potentially approaching some 40-inch plus snowfall totals. Another model, the GFS, shows that widespread footprint of very heavy snow. Anyone in this kind of grayish color, that's where the 2 to 3 feet snowfall totals are possible. Keep in mind, remember that area of central Wisconsin I talked about where the GFS does indicate some of those heaviest totals? This is the area that I think is most uncertain because it all depends on how much sleet and freezing rain mixes in. If we get a little bit more of that warm nose of sleet and freezing rain, some of these totals may be too high, especially because the sleet is really efficient at cutting away at some of the snow, but regardless, still a very impactful scenario. Here's a European model, a third model, still that same thing. We have agreement, we have consistency, so that's why we're ringing the alarm bells. This is going to be a high impact system, one of the worst systems that we've had in many years, with record-breaking snow potentially, especially if we get any of these 30-inch plus snowfall totals. That is certainly record-breaking, and especially considering it's March, we've been really warm lately. Suddenly we're getting walloped by this winter storm. It's going to catch many people off guard, so don't put away that winter gear and don't put away your winter mindset yet, because a lot of snow is coming. We'll have more refinement in these totals. I'll have a final snowfall forecast on Sunday, but even before then, some of the impacts will be starting as soon as late on Saturday. If we do all of our right precautions, then we should be just fine through this potentially historic snow event. The last component is the wind. This is why blizzard conditions are possible, because this whole system with all that wind energy, it'll be packing a lot of winds over much of the central and eastern US. Anyone in this kind of yellow shade, that's where 20 to 30 mile per hour sustained winds gusting up to 50 to even 60 miles per hour. So we've just wrapped up a wind event the past few days with our Clipper system in the north, but another one is coming with this big time storm system. And then notice in portions of the northern plains, all of this wind will be coming when that snow is falling. That's why blizzard conditions, reduced visibility is all possible. It's just going to be a dreadful period for travel. All right, that was a lot. So that's all the snow. Let's shift over to severe weather. So already on day 3 for your day Sunday, we have an enhanced risk of severe weather across a pretty large region. Enhanced risk level 3 out of 5, it means more significant severe weather as possible. The past 2 severe weather events that we've had that were very significant, we unfortunately did have a lot of damage. Those were under enhanced risk days. So you want to pay attention to this. Also, the fact that on day 3 days out, we already have enough confidence to issue an enhanced risk. I think it's pretty likely we're going to get an upgrade as we get closer to the event. This could very well be a moderate risk somewhere embedded inside this enhanced risk, where the highest risk for severe weather is most likely, maybe even flirting with that high category. Regardless of the category, all this goes to show high confidence in impactful severe weather is coming. Here's a closer look at some of the probabilities. So anywhere in Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Tennessee, western Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, including St. Louis, but especially Paducah, Jonesboro, Clarksville, Evansville, all those cities in this portion of the country along the Mississippi Valley. This is where you're most at risk for those damaging winds and potentially a wide swath of very damaging winds. Now, anyone in this hatched area, that's where more significant severe weather is possible. And then anyone in the red and especially the pink colors, that's where the highest coverage of severe storms are expected. So again, just like with the snow, I'll make another video on Sunday where we'll dive a little deeper into some of the specifics. But what's going to happen is we're going to get a squall line forming with our front. And the reason why we're so concerned about severe weather is all that upper level wind energy that I showed you earlier. If we have winds screaming 120 plus miles per hour up in the atmosphere, some of that will be translated down as these storms come, and this could lead to wide swaths of wind damage. So something we're watching entering into portions of the central plains. The timing will be later on into the day and evening on Sunday, and especially overnight Sunday into Monday. That's when some of these storms could be at its worst, and then it moves east, especially as it enters an enhanced risk zone. Again, we're worried about the threat of very damaging winds, potentially hurricane force winds of 75 miles per hour plus. Also embedded tornadoes. There is a pretty distinct tornado signal within the line for a few of these spin up tornadoes, which could be locally strong. Now, the dangers of spin up tornadoes, they spin up, they cause damage, and then they spin down very fast, and they're very hard to predict. So just in general, this whole line could be capable of tornadoes and severe winds, and this will just be a very impactful, potentially damaging day. The severe weather threat continues on Monday. Unfortunately, we have a slight to enhanced risk on your day 4 outlook. Again, the fact that we're issuing a enhanced risk on day 4 means there's very high confidence in impactful severe weather, and this could yet again be another moderate risk day as we get closer to the event. This includes South Carolina, North Carolina, Raleigh, Charlotte, Wilmington, and then it extends all the way up into Virginia, DC, and portions of Pennsylvania. If you're anywhere in this corridor along the eastern seaboard, you need to watch out for severe weather on Monday. Resuming where we left off for the Monday threat, notice everything moves further to the east. Don't focus on the details all too much. We'll have a little more as we get closer, but just a very messy day where not only do we have that line, we're also tracking some storms and showers ahead of that line possible, and these storms ahead of the line, they actually have a stronger tornado threat attached to it. So both the things we'll be watching converge, but a very messy day with strong thunderstorms moving into the eastern seaboard on Monday. The other thing, notice back to the west, areas that just got storms and potentially damaged, like let's take St. Louis for an example. A few hours after, you could be getting some snow on the backside of that system. So this is just how crazy that is. We could be going from tornadoes and storms to snow just a few hours later. So very dynamic, and it's going to catch a lot of people off guard and be potentially very impactful. The final piece to the story in the system will be the temperatures, because we have much colder air coming in. This will be behind the system. All that snow that's coming from this Arctic Canadian air that's pretty late in the season, and it's going to be bringing temperatures way down across much of the central and eastern US. So temperatures well below average as we get into Monday, and this will stick for some time. Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, some of that cold air lingers, and compared to the warmth we've been having lately, it's going to feel a lot colder. Freezes will be coming to a lot more. Notice not only the cold in the east, notice the warmth in the west. At the same time, we're going to have very warm air, very above average temperatures coming in, and record shattering heat. It's quite frankly, I'm astounded at how hot we could be getting this early in the season across portions of the west. It'll be a very anomalous event and potentially dangerous for some of the heat. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. First, overall the temperatures, we get cold in portions of the east, especially in the north. If we do get 2 to 3 feet of snow, which I think we will across a select corridor, temperatures will just tumble, especially at night, single digits below 0, wind chills as low as -15. We thought we were done with winter. It is not over yet for portions of the northern plains. So prepare for some potentially bitter cold incoming. All that cold air though will be moving across the central and eastern US, and especially at nights, this is where freezes are possible. In particular, Tuesday morning I think will be the coldest, where some of those freezing temperatures extend the furthest south. This is where the deep south portions of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, you have the potential to be into the 20s and 30s, and this could freeze a lot of vegetation, especially any early gardens that might have planted. For the north, widespread teens are expected, highs only in the 30s, many areas in the north not escaping freezing for highs. So a little bit of a reverse. We're going to be feeling a little bit more like January before things eventually do warm up as we get later on into the week. By converse, while the east freezes, the west will be hot, and this is some of those warm temperatures I was talking about. Look at some of these temperatures. On Monday, Tuesday, in some of the desert southwest and portions of California, we could be nearing 100 degrees. 100 degrees in March. That is ridiculous, and this heat will just continue and even potentially increase as we get toward the latter end of the week. This model, the GFS, shows 103 degrees in portions near Death Valley on Wednesday. So for just some context for this could shatter all-time monthly May records, and if we reach 100 degrees in some of these areas, this could come 3 to 7 weeks earlier than the earliest recorded 100-degree temperature. So typically 100 degrees doesn't come until June, July, right? The middle of summer. Some of the earliest heat records in this area are in April and even May. The fact that it's early March and we're reaching 100 degrees would be a completely anomalous event. Anyone who is caught off guard, if you're traveling to this area, you think it'll be cool, right? It's still spring, or even residents that just aren't expecting this heat, it'll be very dangerous. So if we're out and about with 100-degree temperatures in March and we're not expecting it, that significantly increases that risk for heat stroke and heat-related illnesses. So we just want to make sure even here everyone is still weather aware. The severe weather, the blizzard, that'll be more flashy of a headline, but this is also kind of a sleeper threat that we don't want to discount. And anyone in this area, make sure we're practicing heat safety practices, especially also because it'll be a long duration event, several days, pretty much all of next week at this record heat level. And this will definitely be one for the record books that we remember for a long time, because something like this, very unusual and just doesn't happen all that often. So wow, I tried to keep things brief, but we still had a lot to talk about. Snow, severe weather, heat, cold, all that is coming. Again, I'll have an update video on Sunday. Until then though, hopefully you stay safe. Pretty much all the country will be impacted by this one way or the other. If you don't want to miss any information, which will be coming out, consider subscribing. I'll have more information in the coming days. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone. See you next time and hope you all have a good one.